Good morning. In the subject corporate accounting, there is an important topic underwriting of shares and debentures. I, Dr. Harbala Sida, Associate Professor at SCD Government College Ludhiana, will discuss with you regarding the underwriting of shares and debentures. Uh, you know the syllabus. There are two units in your syllabus in Punjab University, Unit 1 and Unit 2. And this is about to provide knowledge about the basic corporate accounting with the relevant accounting standards. So we shall be discussing the accounting standards also with the relevant topics. In this topic, in Unit 2, underwriting of shares and debentures, we will be discussing from the beginning to the end what is the accounting treatment, how the question is solved, uh, how the marked and unmarked applications are treated. All that we should consider from the definition to the treatment and the solution of the numericals. As we know that the public limited companies want money, they create capital. So there is a public issue of shares and debentures that we demand from the public money through the public issues for the shares and debentures too. And but there is the concept of minimum subscription by the company law. In the company law, that 90% of the subscription should be there of the total issue. So that's a major problem, and without that minimum subscription, the companies will not be getting certificate of commencement, means they cannot commence their business until or unless the minimum subscription is achieved or attained or received. And for that, if they directly go for the public issue and approach the public for that subscription, there are chances of non-fulfillment of the concept of minimum subscription. So that for covering this risk, they go for underwriting. Underwriting is the process of undertaking to sell the shares or debentures of a company to the public, if not subscribed by the public to the extent it will be subscribed by the underwriters. So instead of directly approaching the public, companies make an agreement with the underwriters. They take the risk. They take the risk of what? That if there is anything unsold, they will be taking it themselves. When we talk of the underwritings, there are underwriting in the banks, there is underwriting in the insurance sector, there is underwriting in stock market. So in this topic, we will be covering the underwriting in stock market. It means that underwriting in case of companies uh, for IPOs and for shares and debentures. So this is the topic for today, that is underwriting in the stock market. When we talk of the underwriting agreements, so there is a link or there is an agreement between the companies and the underwriters. Underwriters are given the commission for their work, and the companies uh, cover the risk by making an agreement with the underwriters. So there may be complete underwriting, there may be partial underwriting, there may be firm underwriting, there may be the mixture of both, and there is sub underwriting too. Uh, when we talk of underwriting commission, so this is the reward for the underwriters. They whatever work they do for the companies, they sell their shares and ventures. For that, they are paid commission. But the commission, there is a provision regarding that, that how much permission commission is there, that how much companies are permitted to give them the permission. So when we talk of this is the payment of underwriting commission under section 40 subsection 6 of Companies Act 2013. It provides that companies may pay commission to any person in connection with the subscription of procurement of subscription to its securities, whether absolute or conditional, subject to the following conditions which are prescribed under the company's prospectus and allotment of securities rule 2014. That is, that it is permitted by the articles of association. If it is not permitted by the articles of association, it will not be done. Out of the proceeds of the issue or the profit of the company, both shall not exceed in case of shares 5% of the price at which shares are issued, or a rate authorized by the articles, whichever is less. So if the article permits lesser than the 5%, we will be giving that, or maximum is 5%. And in case of debentures, shall not exceed 2.5%, 2.5% of the price at which debentures are issued, or as specified in the company's article, whichever is lesser. The prospectus of the company shall disclose name of the underwriters, the rate and amount of the commission. So there is the provision of the full disclosure, that everything to be disclosed. And there shall not be paid commission to any underwriters or security which are not offered to the public or subscription. So the commission will be paid only which is offered to the public. For example, that 10% are remained with the directors or other stakeholders which are not by the underwriters. It means they will be uh, giving commission, they will be offered commission of 90% of the total issue. A copy of the contract for the payment of commission is delivered to the registrar at the time of the delivery of the prospectus for registration. Thus, underwriting commission is limited to 5% of the issue in case of shares and 2.5% in case of debentures. The rates of commission given above maximum rates, the company is free to negotiate lower rates with the underwriters. So this is the up to the bargaining, but the maximum should be 5% in case of shares, and in case of debentures is 2.5%. So this is the news in the Economic Times in 2008, that Indalco rights issue devolves. So it means that it's not always that the underwriters manage to sell the whole of the issues, but sometimes they are not able to sell the whole of the issue. It means they have to risk the bear the risk, and they have to pay for, or they have to purchase their self uh, to the issue which is being issued by the companies. So this is the news that right issue devolves means that their issue is not sold fully, or there is the percentage of the total issue that has to be purchased by the underwriters themselves. And the Hindalco rights issue devolves. It means that right issue of the Hindalco Industries has devolved on the underwriters. The issue, which closes on Friday, was hugely undersubscribed but managed to sail through due underwriting by promoters and banks. So it means that that's why the companies go for this underwriting agreement. Uh, when there is underwriting agreement, but there the public may subscribe directly uh, for the company shares and also through the underwriters. So the applications which are by the underwriters, that's called marked applications, and which are directly subscribed by the public without going through the underwriters, that's called unmarked applications. So that their stamp is their mark is imprinted upon the applications in case of underwriting, but if they directly apply for the subscription, that's called unmarked applications. So usually underwritten by the number of underwriters stamp of the underwriters. It means that when they apply through the underwriters, it means that that means marked applications, and without that, that's called unmarked applications. So it means it distinguishes the form of the one underwriter from that of others. It also means that this is not always that there is only one underwriter is there with with whom the company has with the agreement, but there may be number of underwriters which are dealing with the company's IPOs. And applications from directly from the company, it means that those applications will be unmarked. So there may be two cases. Even in single underwriter, the applications will be marked, that is used for distinguish between the marked and unmarked, and this is also used for distinguishing the forms of one underwriter from that of others. Uh, Again, we are coming to the point that there are various types of underwriting agreement. So what type of agreement is there? The treatment is accordingly. That in case of the treatment is different. In case of partial agreement, the treatment is different. From firm uh, agreement, the treatment is different, and uh, accordingly syndicate and sub underwriting. So in this topic, we are limited to the complete, partial and firm agreement. So we will be discussing how the accounting treatment is done in case of complete agreement, how the agreement is done in case of partial agreement, how the treatment is done in case of firm agreement. Complete underwriting. Complete underwriting is when the entire issue of the shares or debentures of the company is underwritten. It is said to be full or complete underwriting. Such an underwriting may be done by one underwriter or by a number of underwriters. If the full issue is underwritten by one underwriter, then his liability will be equal to the number of shares or the debenture underwritten minus the shares applied for. Even if the issue is fully as subscribed or oversubscribed, the underwriter is eligible to get the agreed commission on the issue of shares. In case less number of shares or debentures are subscribed by the public, the underwriter is required to meet the deficiency in the whole. In case public response is good, the underwriter is at an advantage to get the underwriting commission without subscribing even a single share of debentures. And similarly, at the same time, if there are more than one underwriter, then the allocation of unsubscribed shares or debentures amongst themselves is made pro rata, that is in the ratio in which the number of shares or debentures underwritten bear to the total number of shares or debentures offered for subscription. Now we shall discuss uh, the complete underwriting journal entries in the books of company. So firstly, as we know that there is allotment of allotment of shares to the public, that the directly the public subscribe. At that time, bank account debit to share capital, and similarly there is allotment to the underwriter, that is underwriter's account debit to share capital, and uh, that is the commission payable underwriting commission account debit to underwriter's account. And lastly, bank account debit to underwriter's account, so that is the receivable from the underwriter, whatever the amount is due on the side of the underwriter, he will be paying to the company. And similarly, in the books of underwriters, we will be doing the journal entries like the share received as underwriting obligations, shares in company account debit to company account, and second one is company account debit to underwriting commission, underwriter's commission receivable, and company's account debit to bank account, that is the payment made by the underwriter to the company. And last one is if there is decline in the market value of shares or debentures, it will be profit and loss account debit to share or debenture account. So these are the four entries we do in the books of underwriters. Now the question rises, how we will be calculating the liability of the underwriter. For example, this is a company A Limited which has issued 1 lakh equity shares. The whole of the issue is underwritten as follows: X 40%, Y 30%, and Z 30%. And further, applications for 80,000 were received in all, out of which applications for 20,000 shares had a stamp of X, those for 10,000 shares that of Y, and 20,000 shares that of Z. The remaining applications for 30,000 shares did not bear any stamp. Now we will be calculating the liability of the underwriter. So there are 3 points. Number 1, the total number of shares issued. Number 2, that was subscribed by the public directly, or what is the percentage of the total equity shares which are subscribed through the underwriters. So which are subscribed through the underwriters are called marked applications, and which are directly subscribed, that is also called uh, unmarked. And we will be calculating the liability of the underwriters in this question. Now we shall discuss how to count or calculate the liability of the underwriters X, Y and Z given in the previous illustration. The obligation is 40%, 30%, 30% respectively of XYZ Limited. And similarly, the gross liability becomes 40,000 for X, 30,000 for Y, and 30,000 for Z. The total number of shares are 1 lakh. And out of 1 lakh, only 80,000 by subscribed by both the public directly and through the underwriters. So 80,000 were subscribed. Now whatever is subscribed through the underwriters XYZ are the marked applications, in which X 20,000, Y 10,000 and Z 20,000. Total subscribed through the underwriters are 50,000. So liability remains with X 20,000, Y 20,000 and Z 10,000, and total is 50,000. Now we are concerned with the unmarked applications. So total number of shares subscribed are 80,000 of the issued shares, and marked are 50,000. The unmarked are 30,000. Now 30,000 we shall distribute among XYZ Limited according to the gross liability, that is 4:3:3. It means that 12,000 in case of X, 9,000 in case of Y, 9,000 in case of Z. Total is 30,000. Now this was in case of that they were subscribing 100%, but this is not always. They will not be subscribing or making an agreement for selling the whole of the issue. There may be the partial underwriting. So it means, as the name indicates, that the part of the issue of the shares or debentures of the company is underwritten, may be done by one underwriter or number of underwriters. Partial underwriting, the company is treated as underwriter for the remaining part of the issue. For instance, there is an example: a company issued 500 shares, 40% thereof is underwritten. So instead of 100%, only 40% is underwritten. Or by Mr. Underwriter, out of 400 applications received, the marked applications are 175. So how much it was expected? That should be 200. 500, 40% of 500 shares. So it means their gross liability is 200, and marked application, what is done or what the work is done by them, that is through the underwriter, is 175. So net liability rises 25. So in this case, in case of partial underwriting, we will be giving them the benefit of unmarked application too. But in case of partial underwriting, there will be no credit against the unmarked applications. In the previous, in case of full underwriting, we will be giving them the credit of unmarked applications, but in case of the partial underwriting, we will not be giving them any benefit of the unmarked applications. So it means that in other cases, if it would have been the full underwriting, at that time we will be giving them the benefit of unmarked applications too, in which we have discussed in earlier illustration. Now this means that third one is firm underwriting. So firm underwriting means that the underwriter or underwriters agree to buy a certain number of shares or debentures irrespective of the total number of shares or debentures subscribed by the public. An underwriting agreement may be open or firm. What is it? An agreement to take up shares or debentures only when the issue is not subscribed in full is called open writing. For instance, if an underwriting guarantees the issue of 10,000 shares and public applied for 70,000 shares, then underwriter has to purchase the balance of 30,000 which are unsubscribed. In case the public applied 8,000 shares, then the underwriter has to purchase the balance of 2,000 as unsubscribed shares. In case of the public applied for 9,000 shares, then the underwriter has to purchase the balance of, that is, 10,000 shares. And in case of the public applied for 10,000 shares or more shares, the underwriter has no liability against the shares. Again, in case of under subscription, the underwriter is asked to purchase the deficiency of the agreed share or under open underwriting. So if there is deficiency, then only they will be given or they will be subscribed the shares. But when an underwriter enters into an agreement with the company to purchase certain number of shares or debentures irrespective of public subscription, in addition to open underwriting, it is known as firm underwriting. Now this is clear that they will be buying it. Thus, under firm underwriting, the underwriter agrees to take a specified number of shares or debentures in addition to the unsubscribed shares or debentures. An underwriter, through such an agreement with the company, gets priority over the public in relation to the allotment in case of oversubscription. So preferably they will be given the shares before the public. Firm applications are generally treated as a direct applications from the public and are included therein. If, however, the agreement specifically provides personal leave is given for the firm applications also along with the marked applications, firm applications are added to the net liability to find out the ultimate liability of the underwriter. So this is the agreement. Whatever the agreement, we will be solving the questions accordingly. So in case of firm, they will be treated preferably. In case of open, whatever is left, if there is nothing left, they will not be given any share, but in case of firm, they will be given the shares preferably. Firm underwriting treatment. So firm underwriting is treated in two ways. Firstly, treatment firm underwriting shares as unmarked applications, and second one is treating firm underwriting shares as marked applications. So in first case, this is treated as if the firm underwritten shares are subscribed to public, and in second case we are giving advantage of this firm underwritten shares as marked applications. So we shall be discussing this treatment as unmarked application and as well as marked applications in further slide, in next slide. Now we shall discuss the treatment firm underwritten shares as unmarked applications. There is a firm ABC Limited issued 40,000 equity shares of rupees 10 each at par. The entire issue was underwritten as follows, that this is the case. Now X is going for 24,000 share as underwriter, and his firm underwriting is 3200 shares. Y 10,000 share, his firm underwriting is 4,000 shares. Z 6,000 shares, firm underwriting 1200 shares. The total applications including firm underwriting were 28,400 shares. The marked applications were as under. So total it means that 40,000 shares were issued, and out of the 40,000 equity shares only 28,400 shares were subscribed by the public directly as well as through the underwriters. Individually their marked applications are X 7,200 shares, Y 9,000 shares, Z 3,200 shares. The underwriting contract provides, now this is the provision, this is written in the question, and we will be solving the questions accordingly. The underwriting contract provides that credit for unmarked application be given to the underwriters in proportion of the shares underwritten. And secondly, determine the liability of the underwriter and the amount of commission payable to them, assuming it is the maximum allowed by law. Share underwritten are treated as unmarked applications. Now we shall discuss about the liability of XYZ Limited in the case of unmarked applications when we don't consider. Their gross liability is 24,000 in case of X. In case of Y this is 10,000. In case of Z this is 6,000. Total is 40,000. Now we shall deduct the marked application as given in the question. 7,200 in case of X, 9,000 in case of Y, and in case of Z this is 3,200, and total are 19,400. And now the remaining liability is 16,800 in case of X. In case of Y it is 1,000. In case of Z this is 2,800, and total liability 40,000 minus 19,400 is 20,600. Now we shall give credit of unmarked applications including FUs in the ratio of gross liabilities, that is 28,400 minus 19,400, that we have received only 28,400, and the unmarked applications were 19,400, so their remaining liability uh, their 9,000 we shall give them as credit, and we shall divide this number of unmarked applications among X and YZ. So this is 5,400 in case of X, 2,250 in case of Y, and in case of Z this is 1,350. So remaining liability becomes 11,400 in case of X, and Y this is negative, there is no liability, other this is negative liability minus 1,250, and in case of Z this is 1,450, and total is 11,600. Now we shall again give them the advantage of distributing the surplus or the minus obligation of Y among the X and Z. So this is in the ratio of their gross liability of X and Z, that is 24:6 or 12:3. So this is minus 1,000 in case of X and minus 250, and in case of Y it will be plus 1,250, and the remaining is in case of X 10,400, in case of Y this is nil now, and in case of Z this is 1200 and total is 11,600. Now we shall consider their firm underwriting liability. So it means that we will be adding back. Adding back means that this is their liability 10,400 plus 3,200 and nil plus 4,000, Z 1200 plus 1200, and total will be 11,600 plus 8,400. That will be their net liability. So their net liability will be 13,600, 4,000 and 2,400 respectively in case of X, Y and Z, and total liability, net liability will be joint liability will be 20,000. Now we shall discuss about treating firm underwritten shares as marked applications. There is a case Punjab Limited issued 25 lakh equity shares of 10 each at par. 7 lakh shares were issued to the promoters and the balance offered the public was underwritten by 3 underwriters X, Y and Z in the ratio of 2:3:4 with firm underwriting of 50,000, 60,000 and 70,000 shares each respectively. Total subscription received were for 13,88,000. Shares included marked applications and excluding firm underwriting. Marked applications were as follows. Before discussing further, there are three things we will notice. Number one, 25 lakh minus 7 lakh, 18 lakh shares are with the underwriters. Number two, their obligation is uh, in the ratio 2:3:4, and there is firm underwritten shares also, that is 50,000, 60,000 and 70,000. And next, the total subscription is 13,88,000 shares. Now this is the position with the marked applications. XYZ Limited 3 lakh, 3 lakh 50,000 and 4 lakh 50,000. This is also given unmarked and surplus applications to be distributed in gross liability. We shall calculate the liability of XYZ. There is gross liability of X 4 lakh, Y 6 lakh, Z 8 lakh. The total liability is 18 lakh. Now we will deduct FU, that is firm underwritten shares, that was 50,000 in case of X, 60,000 Y and 70,000 Z, and total is 1,80,000. The remaining liability is 3,50,000, 5,40,000, 7,30,000 of XYZ respectively. The total liability is 16,20,000. Now there are marked applications. Now we are deducting the marked applications from the remaining liability. The marked applications were 3 lakh, 3,50,000 and 4,50,000. Now the remaining liability is 50,000, 1,90,000, 2,80,000 and total is 5,20,000. Now we will consider the unmarked applications. Now we are giving the credit for the unmarked applications. We know that there is total subscription of 13,88,000 shares and marked applications were 11,000. So we will be deducting from the total subscription 11 lakh, so remaining is 2,88,000. So 2,88,000 are the unmarked applications, and we will divide among XYZ according to their gross liability, that is 64,000 in case of X, Y 96,000, Z 1,28,000 and total is 2,88,000. Now there is the remaining liability, that is negative in case of X and positive in case of Y 94,000 and 1,52,000 in case of Z, and total is 2,32,000. Now we will divide the share of minus 14,000 means minus liability of X among Y and Z in the ratio of their gross liability, that is 3:4. So in case of X this would be 14,000, in case of Y this is 6,000 minus, and Z minus 8,000. The remaining liability would be, in case of X it would be nil, and in case of Y it is 88,000, and Z 1,44,000. Total is 2,32,000. Now we shall add back the firm underwriting liability, that is 50,000 and 60,000 and 70,000 respectively in case of XYZ, and total is 1,80,000. The total liability of the underwriters would be 50,000, 1,48,000, 2,14,000, and total is 4,12,000. And lastly, in rupees, because the value of one share is rupees 10, we shall divide the number of shares into 10. That would be their liability in rupees, that is 5 lakh in case of X, 14,80,000 in case of Y, and in case of Z it is 21,40,000, and total liability of all the underwriters are 41,20,000. So this is all with the underwriting of shares and debentures. You will try the questions, and the same methods will be applied for all the questions, and same procedure will be there for the treatment as well as calculation of their liability. If there would be any problem, contact me. Thank you very much. Sabka pala ho. May all beings be happy. Thank you very much.